What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be doing a camera comparison test between the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra and the S20 Ultra. Now, as you guys know, when the S20 Ultra launched earlier this year, one of the main features of this device was its crazy camera setup, which included things like 8K video and of course that 100 times space zoom. Unfortunately, the S20 Ultra's camera ended up having a few issues. Videos had focus problems and a warping effect. The space zoom, while super cool, wasn't as practical or maybe as useful as some people had hoped, and all in all, it may not have been the crazy powerful camera setup it was supposed to be. This time around, with the new Note 20 Ultra, Samsung made some big changes that I think really makes this phone the ultimate picture and video taker. And while some things were actually downgraded, this phone has just a 50 times zoom, for example, I think the changes to the camera with the Note 20 Ultra actually make this a way better setup. So in this video, we'll be putting everything to the test with these cameras on these two phones to see which device is truly the ultimate smartphone for pictures and videos. And hopefully by the end, this will help you decide if either device is right for you. First off, before we get into the picture and video samples, I want to take just a second to go over the hardware specs so that we know what's different and what all we're working with. On the S20 Ultra, this phone has the 108 megapixel f1.8 aperture main lens around back, the 48 megapixel periscope telephoto lens with 4 times optical zoom, 10 times hybrid zoom, and that maximum 100 times space zoom. And there's also a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens and the time of flight depth sensor as well. The Note 20 Ultra has a similar 108 megapixel f1.8 main lens, but a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto lens that has 5 times optical zoom and a maximum 50 times hybrid zoom. There's also a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, but rather than a depth sensor, this time around Samsung added a brand new laser focus sensor on this phone instead. Now, for the most part, the capabilities and software features and shooting modes offered on both of these phones are almost identical. The newer Note 20 Ultra has an upgraded Pro video mode with additional features, but most everything else here is going to be the same. There's 8K video for both, which we'll test in a second, 108 megapixel shooting modes, and all of the other options and things you might expect. The first big difference really is with that zoom capability, and I want to take some time to go over this and compare some side-by-side samples, since really this was kind of one of the main selling points of the S20 Ultra anyway. Like I explained, pretty much everything is different here between these two phones with the zoom. Samsung completely revamped the whole setup basically with the Note 20 Ultra, so even starting with just 2 times or 5 times zoom, I think you can see a big difference already. With the S20 Ultra, you get up to 4 times optical zoom, which means the phone is using the lens hardware itself up to that point. Then there's 10 times hybrid zoom, which takes the lens and some software to do the zooming. And there's also that 100 times digital space zoom. The Note 20 Ultra has 5 times optical zoom, so already a bit more capable in what the lens itself can do, and up to 50 times hybrid zoom, which is significantly better than the hybrid zoom on the S20 Ultra. Side by side with real world usage, the big thing you're going to notice here is detail. Up to 2 or 3 times zoom, the S20 and Note 20 Ultras produce a similar picture, but from about 5 times zoom and beyond. You get a noticeable boost in detail with your subject with the Note 20 Ultra, and zooming in like 20 times and beyond, in a lot of cases the difference is basically night and day. And speaking of night, one of the best examples of the crazy improvements in the zoom actually comes in low light shots, and in particular, if you're interested in taking pictures of the moon. So for example, here's what this shot looks like just as a normal picture. And here is just the moon from that same shot zoomed in at 50 times. You can see, I think, pretty clearly that the image looks significantly better on the Note 20 Ultra. It's not only usable, but I'd say it actually looks really pretty good. With the S20 Ultra, it's not bad, it's still an impressive capability, but I think you lose a lot of that wow factor when you consider just how blurry it is. And of course, at the full 100 times zoom with the S20 Ultra, Again, while still really impressive, I don't think it really adds anything in particular. The picture is just too blurry to work with. All in all, I was really impressed with the improvements that Samsung made to the zoom setup on the Note 20 Ultra. They didn't advertise it as heavily this time around, and I think that partly has to do with the fact that it may seem like a downgrade going from 100 times space zoom to 50 times zoom, but I think the quality improvements and the capabilities, just the fact that it's more usable with a more detailed shot in the end, that all just makes the Note 20 Ultra the better option. Okay, so let's also touch on that 8K video recording now too. With the S20 Ultra, the video capabilities had some issues initially, and while some software upgrades the last couple of months did offer some improvements, I just don't think it ended up being as good as people wanted. With the Note 20 Ultra, the two big things that needed work, focusing and stabilization, I think are 100% better. Unlike the S20 Ultra, which was either super slow to change focus or sometimes just wouldn't focus on a subject at all, the Note 20 Ultra is just faster, smoother, and more accurate. And there's much less of that sort of distortion or warping that occurred when you moved the phone around. I don't necessarily think too many people will film their videos in 8K, but it's nice to have the option at least. It's super impressive on a smartphone, obviously, and it's great that video recording just in general on the Note 20 Ultra is better overall. Now, interestingly enough, with all of the other changes and improvements to the Note 20 Ultra, I think when it comes to just your average everyday shooting, these two phones still look pretty similar with their results. Most of these regular shots were taken with the full 108 megapixel shooting mode, but I also utilized the wide angle camera quite a lot here as well, because as I was shooting, I noticed that with the wide angle, there was actually a decent difference for whatever reason. The exposure and the color were a little off between the two phones in certain shots, which I found kind of interesting. I think I liked the results of the Note 20 Ultra a bit more when there was a difference. In certain shots, the S20 Ultra got a little dark and seemed to oversaturate for whatever reason. It's not a big deal, but just something I did notice. With nighttime shots, I think I actually preferred the result of the S20 Ultra for whatever reason. Again, this doesn't happen with every example, but more often than not, the S20 Ultra seemed to offer a brighter, clearer shot in low light than the Note 20 Ultra when using the night mode option. Again, I'm not entirely sure what would account for this difference, but just something I wanted to point out. So I'm just going to go ahead and let a few more of these pictures play through for you guys. Feel free to critique them and analyze them yourself. Let me know your thoughts as we go along in the comments down below, and I'll meet back up with you guys at the end of this video. In general, both of these phones take fantastic pictures, as they should, given the hardware setup, the software features, and obviously their prices. But to be totally honest, if I had to choose just one, I think the clear answer for me is the Note 20 Ultra, and that's solely because of all the improvements that this phone has over the S20 Ultra. The S20 in a lot of ways was almost like the first attempt or the first gen product for Samsung in their super high-end over-the-top smartphone camera setup. It was ambitious, but not everything was perfect. This time around, the Note 20 Ultra is refined, it's improved, it's much more practical, and I think it's one of the best all-around options for shooting pictures and videos. But what do you guys think? Which phone would you prefer? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.